Kedvach. Last week, I shared a story about divine providence, and this week I want to share one as well. And often when we think about divine providence and Hashem bringing us to various places, we only know part of the story. We only know why we decided to go there. Like it says in Hayom Yom that tzaddikim, they know why Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened, but here we go. So when we think about divine providence, we know various reasons why we decide to do A, B, and C, and Hashem has a deeper plan. But when there is a reason, a Torah reason, a mitzvah reason to do whatever it is, so that's as far as you would think that is a plan of Hashem. But often, thank you so much, Rosie. Often, it's not just the one reason that Hashem has for us to do something. Often, there's more than one reason. Often, it's not just the simple reason that even if it's a mitzvah reason, there's something deeper often as well. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that it's not just because of the one mitzvah that you know about that Hashem is asking us to do something. I'll give you an example. Actually, I'll just tell you the story and get you understand what I'm talking about. The Rachmastrivka Rebbe had a very close connection with our Rebbe. Rachmastrivka Rebbe visited New York, the Rebbe and Tversky. He visited New York in 1954 for the wedding of his son, who is the current Rachmastrivka Rebbe. So in that visit, when he came to New York, he also visited the Rebbe. Now, although his family comes from Rachmastrivka, from that city, his family also spent a lot of time in Nikolaev. Nikolaev is a city where the Rebbe was born. The Rebbe actually wasn't just born there himself, but for generations, the Rebbe's family is connected with the city of Nikolaev. The Rebbe's parents, Rebbe Chana and Rebbe Levi Yitzchak, they were supported by the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Moshe Levin, who was the rabbi of Nikolaev. And before him, Rabbi Moshe Levin, there was the famous chassid and tzaddik, Rav Ram Lavut, who wrote Shara Koilo, which explains many parts of our prayers and the meaning of the various parts of the Siddur and other issues of halacha. So Rachmastrivka Rebbe, because of the persecution of the KGB and the NKVD, he had to leave Rachmastrivka and he had to move to Nikolaev. And because of that, he had a besides the fact that he and the Rebbe have a family connection, because his dynasty comes from the Chernobyl Rebbes, and it's known that Chernobyl Rebbes and Lubavitcher Rebbes have a relationship from the time of the second Rebbe of Chabad, from the Middle Rebbe. So besides the family connection, the Rachmastrivka Rebbe actually spent time in Nikolaev, and that's how he got to know the Rebbe personally. So when he came to New York in 1954 for this wedding, so he made sure to visit the Rebbe. So when he visited the Rebbe said to him that there's a Jew from Nikolaev who lives in New York, and the Rebbe said that he had tried many times to inspire this person to come back to Torah mitzvahs. And the Rebbe said, apparently this has a connection to you. Apparently this Jew, his spiritual well-being is connection to you. And therefore, the Rebbe was asking him that while he's there, he should make an effort to visit this specific Jew. The Rachmastrivka Rebbe agreed. And on the spot, the Rebbe himself called, while the Rachmastrivka Rebbe was in the Rebbe's room, he called up this Jew, and Rebbe asked the Rachmastrivka Rebbe when he'll be able to accept this person for a visit, and the guy said, the Rachmastrivka Rebbe said he'll be able to accept his visit on Friday. So Rebbe called up this guy, and they asked him if he could. Does he remember the Rachmastrivka Rebbe? He says, of course I remember him. So Rebbe asked him, can you visit him this Friday? And they made up that this gentleman, this Jew, is going to visit the Rachmastrivka Rebbe's, where he was staying in Borough Park on Friday. By the way, it's an unusual honor that the Rachmastrivka Rebbe received, that the Rebbe himself returned the visit and went to the Rachmastrivka Rebbe's, where he was staying in New York during that visit. So that Friday, this Jew visited Rachmastrivka Rebbe. How do they know each other? Rachmastrivka Rebbe, while he was living in Nikolaev, he was involved in creating underground schools to teach Torah. And that's how he knew this boy. This was now it was 30 years since they had seen each other. And at this point, this boy had become one of the top professors. Don't know which field he was in, but he was one of the most famous professors in America at the time. This story was shared by the Rachmastrivka Rebbe's grandson, Rabbi Twersky. And he said that when he was a child, he was studying in one of the schools that the Rachmastrivka Rebbe had founded to be taught, where they were teaching Torah on the ground. So when he came to visit Rachmastrivka Rebbe, it was a Friday afternoon. And it's customary on Friday afternoon to say Chumash twice together with Unkelis, Chumash of the week together with Unkelis. It's also customary not to interrupt it. Not to interrupt. When you're saying Chumash with Unkelis, you're supposed to say it in continuation and not to stop. In fact, interesting story, just parenthetically, there was a rabbi in the city of Dakshitz, whose name was Rabbi Sheinin. Rabbi Sheinin used to say that there's one kind of light of Hashem that comes down through each word of the Torah, each letter of the Torah that you say, and there's a much greater light of Hashem which comes down when you say an entire portion of Torah. But in order for that light of Hashem to come down to the world, you have to say the whole entire parsha at once. You say only part of the parsha, you don't have it. So Rabbi Sheinin, when he would do Ma'aver Sedra, he was careful not to interrupt, but he was a rabbi in the city of Dakshitz, so very often he had to interrupt his Ma'aver Sedra to answer a question. A woman will come to have a question on chicken, you have to stop the Ma'aver Sedra and answer the question. But even though he was almost finished, it takes a long time to say the entire Sedra. Some people it takes 45 minutes, an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It takes a long time, especially if you were the rabbi of Dakshitz, like Rabbi Sheinin. I'm sure it took much longer, he would say, with the cantillation, with the tune, with the trop. So he was almost finished Ma'aver Sedra. This lady has a question before Shabbos, so he would interrupt the Ma'aver Sedra to answer a question, and then after he answered a question, he would start the whole parsha all over again. And this happened not once, not twice, sometimes it happened 3 times, that he would have to repeat the whole parsha all over again in order to be able to both answer the question and still to maintain to have this light of Hashem. Anyways, so Rebbe is saying Ma'aser, and this Jew wants to speak to him, but the Chassidus Rebbe says, I can't, emotions, like he's middle of Ma'aser, and he asks the guy to wait outside. The guy waits outside, and he's hearing, something he hasn't heard in 30 years. He's hearing his Rebbe, the Chassidus Rebbe, and how he's reading the Torah, and he hears just his holy, sweet voice reading the Torah, and it touches him. He starts to cry. And he's waiting patiently for Chassidus Rebbe to be able to talk to him. And after he finishes, the whole time he's like very, very emotional. They start to talk, and they start sharing their memories from the last 30 years, and they haven't been in touch for 30 years. So Chassidus Rebbe asked him, I think, after they share where he is up to, what the Chassidus Rebbe is doing, Rachmastrivka. What did I say? Rachmastrivka. Sorry. Rachmastrivka. Sorry about that. Try again. Rachmastrivka. That's how you spell it. Rachmastrivka. Sorry. That's how you pronounce it. Rachmastrivka. Sorry about that. So about Rachmastrivka Rebbe. And this gentleman, this professor, are exchanging memories for 30 years. And after he concludes sharing these memories, Rachmastrivka Rebbe asks him, what's going on with your observance of Shabbos? So the professor says he can't really keep Shabbos. He is a professor, he has to teach, and he has to learn, and it's not really possible for him to keep Shabbos. What about kosher? Yet another excuse why he can't keep kosher. So Rachmastrivka Rebbe starts to cry. He says, when we were in Russia, the Malachi Kabbalah, that's a term that Hasidim would use to describe the KGB. Malachi Kabbalah is a Talmudic word that refers to the angels that after 120 years are sent to prepare the neshama to go into Gan Eden. Before the neshama gets to Gan Eden, he has to get sometimes has to go through Gehenim, and the angels in Gehenim are called Malachi Kabbalah, the angels that do damage. So that's what the euphemism Hasidim would use to describe the police officers of the KGB and then KVD. So Rachmastrivka Rebbe said to this guy, he said, listen, we were together in Russia, and every day you and I were frightened that maybe the KGB officers would arrest us. Maybe they would stop you from learning Kometz Alafah and Patach Alafah and take you to take your teacher away and send him to Siberia, and take you away and put you in an orphanage. And yet we persevered. Every day we studied Torah together. Every day we davened together. And now he said, what was the purpose of this? What was the purpose of this, all this sacrifice that was done then, and now there's nothing left? What's the point? And Rachmastrivka Rebbe started to cry. And this professor started to cry. And I forgot to mention, the guy he thought, when Rachmastrivka Rebbe mentioned that he was there for a wedding, he thought that he wanted a check. He wanted some assistance, so he wrote out a check. So Rachmastrivka Rebbe said, I'm not taking any check from you. I want to ask you about your Torah. So he started to cry, and the guy started to cry. And the guy finally said to the Rebbe, to Rachmastrivka Rebbe, he said to him, I promise you that from now on, I will keep Torah, I will keep mitzvahs, I'll keep Shabbos, I'll keep kosher. Please accept my check. I want to help you with the wedding. Please accept my check. So Rachmastrivka Rebbe said, I will not accept your check unless the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself testifies that you indeed have become Baal Tshuva. That's how they parted ways. He promised to Torah mitzvahs, and Rachmastrivka Rebbe said, I'll accept your check, your assistance. I need the Lubavitcher Rebbe to testify this is true. That's how they parted. 3 weeks later, the Rebbe himself called Rachmastrivka Rebbe. I'm not sure if he was already back in Israel or he's still in Borough Park. I don't know. He calls Rachmastrivka Rebbe, and the Rebbe says to him, you think you came to America in order to participate in the wedding of your son, when the real reason you came to America, the Rebbe said, is in order for this person, inspired this Jew, come back to their mitzvahs. And the Rebbe testified that indeed this person has become, the Rebbe himself testified, it's not a small thing. The Rebbe testified that indeed he became Baal Tshuva, and that's the story. So when I point to sharing the story is to underscore how it's not only for one mitzvah that Hashem puts us in various places. I go to shul to put on film and to daven, but the reason I came to shul at this exact moment, there's a reason, and it may not only be to daven. Just because there's a holy purpose in something doesn't mean that that's the only thing that Hashem wants to accomplish. Yes, the Rachmastrivka Rebbe was coming to America, very important purpose. He came here for the wedding of his son, but that's not the only purpose. There's something else that's deeper behind it. And in a similar way, you have to realize that wherever Hashem sends us, there's something that may be there that we have to pay attention to. On that note, I want to share another story, which I told you who did the story already before, and I probably shared as well to David Isra, but I don't think so. Unbelievable story that I heard this week about Rebbetzin Sima Ashkenazi. She, every single Friday night, she would light the Shabbos candles, and after she lit the Shabbos candles, this happened to her every week, she suddenly remembered that she didn't put the flowers, the new fresh flowers that her husband had brought home, in water. So she would have to take the flowers and put them, or she couldn't do it after lighting candles. She would have to ask one of her children or her husband, if he was still home, to take the flowers and put them in the water. And it bothered her, the dissonance of switching from lighting the Shabbos candles to putting the flowers in the water. It bothered her, this change. It bothered her. But she didn't tell anybody about it. She didn't tell anyone. But it really bothered her. Until one year, she visited the Rebbe with her husband for Purim. And after Purim, they had an audience with the Rebbe. She didn't tell anyone how much this bothered her, but it happened week after week. She would only remember of putting the flowers in water after she lit Shabbos candles. That would somewhat trigger her memory. She comes in the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe, her husband was the Rabbi Bar Chabad. I'm sure there are many issues that the Rebbe had to discuss with him. Out of the clear blue sky, after discussing whatever issues the Rebbe wanted to discuss, then the Rebbe turned to her and the Rebbe said, it's important to make sure to water the flowers before lighting the Shabbos candles. Because the Torah gives us a very important commandment, the mitzvah of Baal Tashchis. Baal Tashchis means you're not allowed to waste anything. Since you're not allowed to waste anything, you have to make sure that you water the flowers before you light Shabbos candles. So by the Rebbe saying this to her, it was a total affirmation to her. She felt like she was doing something wrong, like here this holy moment, she's davening and praying and crying for her children to light Shabbos candles. And then she's switching to this mundane thing of putting the flowers in water. And the Rebbe is telling her that she's right. She's right, that this has to be taken care of. Yes, you could do it before light Shabbos candles, but it's about Tashchis, and this has to be taken care of. So I'm just pointing out again another similar idea of the divine providence guides us where we need to be, and we don't always see the whole picture, and to pay attention to what the Hashem's plan is for us, and because that good thought, good word, good action can tip the scale, make it all happen. And that's what I want to share this week. Any questions, comments, or criticism? All right. A good vach, Yehuda. A good vach, David. A good vach.
Good vach. Thank you.